We must be defenders of free speech in all different venues, especially on college campuses, including speech that you don't like. Joining us now is Kristen Waggoner, President, CEO, and General Counsel of Alliance Defending Freedom. Kristen, walk us through what's going on at the University of Memphis, what happened last evening, and the reason that we decided to kind of call the bluff of University of Memphis regarding Kyle Rittenhouse.
Well, last night was a tremendous victory for TPUSA, Kyle Rittenhouse, and the right to speak freely on our college campuses. I think we have to go back to really a year ago, last March in 2024, when the TPUSA chapter at the University of Memphis decided to sponsor an event with Kyle Rittenhouse. And they worked with the University of Memphis officials, created a ticketing system through TPUSA, and had the event all planned out to host about 300 kids, students, and it was open to the public. But what happened in that instance is that the university interfered with the ticketing system. It allowed disruptors to virtually take all of the tickets, and then it allowed a mob rule to take over that event, and it had to be shut down because the university officials and the police refused to protect the speech of TPUSA and of Kyle Rittenhouse. So last night, after Alliance Defending Freedom sent a legal demand letter with very specific demands to the university complied with those demands, and TPUSA was able to move forward. So we're so grateful for their courage and glad that they were welcomed back to campus. We also got one of the policies changed so that future students won't have to endure this again.
That is wonderful. Let's go to cut 235 and play the news reports of this.
Action News 5's Bria Bolden joining us live now from the University of Memphis to explain, Bria, why Rittenhouse has been allowed to be back on campus despite all the pushback.
Yeah, well, last year, Kyle Rittenhouse abruptly left the stage at the UC Theater after pushback from University of Memphis students. Members of Turning Point USA's University of Memphis chapter, the group that invited Rittenhouse to campus, were escorted off campus by Tennessee Highway Patrol troopers after being run off by students. Turning Point USA is a nonprofit that advocates conservative views on college campuses. Rittenhouse is set to make his return here to the U of M tomorrow evening to discuss his 2021 trial and the Second Amendment.
So, Kristen, tell us more about the encounter and the victory here based on that news report.
Yes, well, at ADF, we have about 450 legal victories on college campuses. And I have to tell you that in seeing many of those victories play out, the circumstances of this particular campus incident are some of the worst that we've seen, at the University of Memphis, at this event a year ago, not only at the last minute did the university essentially take over the ticketing system to allow even more disruption to occur, but it didn't even provide reasonable steps to protect the safety of TPUSA members, as well as Kyle Rittenhouse, leading them out in front of a mob and having that mob then chase those TPUSA members, threaten to kill them, spit on their cars to pursue them. It was just the circumstances were so deeply disturbing and fell so far short of constitutional and state law requirements. The university officials are not allowed to let mobs rule and to essentially engage in a heckler's veto. So again, it takes courage to stand up, but thank God for these members who did, as well as for Kyle.
And thank you for ADF for defending our students and doing a great job there. In closing here, Kristen, just tell us more about the great work that ADF is doing and how people can support it and get behind it.
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, first, I would just say we have a students' rights handbook on our website, adflegal.org. We provide all of our services free of charge. And we believe that censorship, not only on campuses, but in our workplaces and through both government collusion with private collusion online, is the biggest issue that we have to fight today. So a lot of our resources are going towards that, as well as fighting gender identity ideology and expanding parental rights, because we do believe that gender ideology has been a Trojan horse to essentially compel speech by the government and to take away our rights. And when we allow censorship to continue, we know that most countries around the world have free speech protections. It's only a matter of whether citizens insist that the government provide it. So we love being able to serve organizations like yours and the good work you're doing.
Yeah, so tell us just quickly more about the transgender identity fight. How is that proceeding in the courts men and women's sports, locker rooms. I know that some of the proponents of the more radical gender ideology use the Civil Rights Act. How are you guys thinking about this legally at ADF?
Well, we're thinking we're going to win, and we're going to keep at it until we do win. It feels like we're starting to turn a corner. But man, Charlie, I think it's so important to go back to the beginning because it does dovetail closely with the work that you're doing on campuses. And really, the very first case that was filed in the United States was a case ADF filed, but it was on behalf of three young girls who were in high school. They were freshmen and sophomore, and two boys had come in. They were previously competing 3 weeks earlier as boys. 3 weeks later, they're competing as girls, and they ended up displacing essentially 85 opportunities for girls to advance to other competitions and took 15 different state titles in just like a 3-year period. So that's where it started, and it's nearly 10 years that we've been fighting this battle. We have seen twists and turns along the way, and I'm thrilled to see President Trump kind of finish what he started in the first term to again stand for equal opportunities for girls. But we have a lot of fighting still to do, as you can probably tell, with the cases that have been filed. And we know that the issue isn't just solved at the federal level. We have to have Congress pass legislation, and we also need to have states fall in line to protect the rights of women and girls. So there's a long legal battle ahead. And let me just say this. We have 2 petitions at the U.S. Supreme Court right now on this issue, and we need the court to take the issue up because 25 states have passed laws to protect girls, and the ACLU is challenging the rights of these states to protect the rights of girls.
Has the Supreme Court yet weighed in on this topic in history, or have they just kind of punted and delayed so far?
Largely punted and delayed. I would say that there's a decision called the Bostock decision, which involved whether sex included gender identity in the employment context, and that was several years ago. And I would say activists on the left are trying to use that decision to say somehow that means that women don't have equal rights. They're misusing that. And in that Bostock decision, the Supreme Court carved out essentially and said, we're not saying that this applies in any other way. So we believe that the court is going to affirm these rights when it does take this case. The last thing I would say on what the Supreme Court's doing right now is, first of all, they're considering whether to take the women's sports issue. We have 2 petitions that are asking them to take these cases. And then the second thing is in June, probably about June, we will see the Supreme Court decide a case called Scrimeti, which involves whether states can pass laws to protect young children from undergoing cross-sex hormones and permanent irreversible harm in this area. That decision could also impact the rights of women and girls moving forward. And we're thrilled to be able to have helped pass legislation in 26 states where states have passed the laws to protect minors. So we have to think about this both in terms of a political issue, getting good people in office, then in terms of a public policy issue, getting them to pass good laws, and then also defending those laws in court and preserving the rights of families to be able to raise their children consistent with their values.
This is a good way to end. Let's play cut 3 of President Trump and the governor of Maine going back and forth around this very topic. Let's play cut 3.
I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
He's ready to fight on it. I know ADF is as well. Kristen, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
ADF does great work.